We really do appreciate the publisher sponsoring this one. It's given us the opportunity to really dive into it in a very busy week. So you've just logged on to the eShop and you've seen Have a Nice Death and you thought, I wonder what that's all about. Well, today Glenn and I are going to talk you through everything you need to know about the new game releasing on Nintendo Switch today. A big thanks to all of you that enjoy the content. If you want to save 5% on any of your games, use code SwitchUp over at switchup.gg. What are the things we think you'll want to know about Have a Nice Death? Well, let's find out.
So let's start with the story then, and basically you play as Death himself and his company Death Inc. Now Death decides that he's overworked and has himself a little break and puts his minions in charge, only to return to find that they've actually taken over the corporation. He needs to get his staff back in check by taking them out one by one.
Alright then, let's get down to the nitty gritty then, the actual gameplay. So it's a very fast paced roguelite action title that has you equipped with several different weapons, doesn't it?
Yeah, so it's on a 2D plane, as I'm sure you'll see by the footage, and as Mark said, there are a number of weapons that you can pick up. You start with your basic weapon, which is a scythe, although you can find variations to this and will find them as you go on. And there are also secondary and tertiary weapons that you can pick up, and they generally revolve around being either melee weapons such as hammers or axes, or more ranged weapons like bows, and you also have magic spells as well which use your mana.
Yeah, so the general setup is that you have those weapons that Glenn's mentioned. You have a very fast moveset, so you can go attacking up, you can attack vertically, you can attack down into the ground. You can dodge between attacks, so if you want to dodge damage, you can essentially use your dash move. And then each of those weapons has its own special ability.
Yeah, that's right. So you hold down ZL, as you say, and press one of the face buttons, and it will do like a screen clearing move. Obviously, if you're on a boss, and we'll talk about bosses more in a moment, and it does a good amount of damage. So these are good moves to keep in mind.
Now, one really interesting thing, and Glenn, you had to really help me with this, was the health system. It's quite an unusual and unique health system, isn't it?
Yeah, you basically have three slots, if you like, that you can use for health. And every so often you'll pick up a blue vial, or they're called animas in the game. And these will restore some of your health if you press L to use them. Now, when you take damage, you'll take it almost in like two ways. You'll take basic damage, which will come out of your max HP, but you'll also have a grayed out area, which is the damage that can be restored by these blue vials. If you pick up a yellow vial, or enough blue vials to turn it into a yellow vial, then this can exceed this damage part, if you like, and actually restore your max HP, so you can get back to full health. So you're going through Death Inc., the company itself, and each of the worlds, if you like, are separated into a department of the company. So you'll start off and you'll have to clear a floor, and then at the end of that floor you'll get to a lift or an elevator, and you'll take that to the next floor. I think there are about 6 per stage, per level, if you like, in total. And each of these will give you like a choice of where you go next. So you could go to a floor where you are more likely to find another weapon or store a weapon that you like. You could go to a floor where you may pick up the currency for the game, which are souls, or you could go to a mini boss, say, for example, and have to take them out. Now, what you'll find as you play through is that you can pick up perks or bonuses. They're called curses, and by picking these up, you'll either gain yourself a passive or an active ability. So it could be something standard like you increase your max HP or your mana. It could be something like infusing your weapon with a status element that attacks that damages the enemy, such as fire or ice. Or it could be something a bit more structured where you will gain, say, an increase in your abilities, but it comes with a potential penalty. And this was quite interesting, wasn't it? So, for example, on one of Mark's runs, he gained the chance to pick up a card whereby every time he used the anima, the health pickup, he would get a bit stronger. But as a consequence of that, he then had to pick a penalty card, and I think the one you picked was that you every time you went into a shop, the prices would increase. Yeah. So every time you pick up a really strong card, it comes with that caveat of having to pick up a penalty card as well. Again, just keeps things nice and balanced.
Yeah, in terms of general pickups, so as you go through a stage, to give you an idea of how it feels, they're split into 3 different categories. It's almost like there's one that does an offensive ability, one that's to do with health, and then one to do with magic, and they're color coordinated as such, which is quite a familiar system and it works well. Now, one of the biggest things with any of these games, as you know, is overall difficulty. I was playing through quite happily, enjoying destroying the world, using all my different abilities and feeling pretty smug about myself until I hit the mini bosses. Now, aside from the main boss, which happens at the end of your set number of floors, there are also some mini bosses which you can optionally choose to face. Now, feeling smug as I did, I went to face the first one and got absolutely destroyed. And that takes us onto the subject of death. What happens when you die?
Yeah, it's got quite a nice system actually. So generally in a roguelite, you want to feel some sort of progression, however that may look. So obviously you do go back to the start of the game, but what happens is every time you die, you have a performance review and it will give you the other currency in the game. So you have the souls, which you can use to buy weapons or just general items at stores within one run, but then you have gold ingots which carry across from run to run, and you can use those to permanently upgrade yourself in terms of buying new weapons, say, outside of a run for subsequent runs. So your performance review, it'll be things like, you know, you didn't get hit for X amount of time, or you didn't use a healing item, and you'll gain gold ingots for all of those, as well as any you picked up generally in that run. And then you can use these to really start to shape your future runs in a way that, you know, suits you better. As well as that, you will also gain XP for each run that you go on, and there are levels, and each level that you hit with this XP will then unlock something that again will just assist you in future. So for example, the very first level, which you'll probably gain on dying on that first run, means that every subsequent run after that, you will start with an anima health item. Moving on a little bit, say level 4 for example, it gives you the potential to unlock an elevator straight to the first boss, so you don't have to use or go through, level 1 again. So just little things, little perks that will just start to make the game a little bit more enjoyable, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It does a few things actually, which we've mentioned a couple of times with different reviews of different games. And one of them that stood out to me straight away is every time you get to a boss, it will actually reference past events. So I hit that first boss for the second time, and it referenced, you know, that first time.
fight,
and that's
yeah.
good. It carries on that narrative, so it feels a continuous thing rather than starting out each time.
Yeah, as well as that, you also have the contract system, another quite interesting mechanic of the game, where again, before you go on a run, you can sign a contract, which could give you just a straight up bonus, something that will help you out. It could give you an extra weapon to start with, say, for example, but generally they work in that it will challenge you to meet a certain criteria, and if you do, you'll get, say, extra health or maybe souls. If you don't, then there'll be a penalty, like you may lose health. So for example, it could be that you have to defeat 30 enemies without being hit, or it could be that you have to get to the first boss within, say, 5 minutes, 8 minutes, whatever it is. You don't have to sign these, but again, it's a nice way of that risk reward, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of getting something if you feel up for the challenge, but you can completely ignore it at the same time.
So as you progress through different levels and get better, hopefully, you'll also notice the general structure of combat. So you'll have enemies dotted around the stage that are generally a little bit easier. Some of them will have certain drops like gold for the larger ones, etc. But there's also gated in sections, so the walls will come up on each side and you'll have to defeat a certain number of enemies before you can progress. And it will always give you some small reward at the end of those, which is nice.
Yeah, it does have that classic roguelike feel of constantly finding new items or upgrades. And you can, if you look in, say, the pool section for example, or at the end of your run, you can look at your status screen and you'll see the pictures of all of the ones you picked up, which I think is a great feature of any roguelike, when it really does show you how strong you were, albeit it may well have ended in failure, you know?
Yeah, another thing is the weapons. There are a ton of different weapons that you can unlock. There's a really nice system there, I don't know if Glenn mentioned it, whereby as you killing enemies or doing other small tasks that are shown here, you'll reduce the cost of those at the end of the run so that you can then gain those through those contracts that Glenn was talking about for your next run.
Yeah, exactly. So, for example, if you find a weapon within a run and you use it X amount of times, then that may take the price of buying that weapon so you can have it by 33%. If you kill X amount more, 66%, until finally you could buy it for dirt cheap, meaning you can save your gold ingots for other things. It's a very clever system, actually.
Yeah, and I think that's the general gist that we've got. The more we've played, the more depth we've experienced, which is always a good thing when you're playing any roguelike, because it needs to capture your attention for a long time.
Absolutely.
And there are enough systems here that I think most fans of the genre are going to find a very deep world to dive into.
Yeah, and with that, with the world, let's look at or talk about the visuals and the audio. Now, again, as I'm sure you've seen, it uses that kind of a monochrome system, doesn't it? Lots of blacks and whites and greys, but it does it in almost like a comic book style, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And I saw a few areas of splash of colour, like on his desk, you know, with his chair back in the red that stands out. It does. Overall, I think it looks beautiful. I think It's funny because in many ways it reminds me of the quality of something like Cuphead in terms of some of those animations. They look really hand-drawn. You know, some of the character animations as well as the NPCs, really quite impressive.
Yeah, they've definitely built a world as opposed to just designing levels. And what I liked as well, just going back to the colour system, is that when you start to pick up the status ailments, poison, burn, freeze, seeing the enemies burning with that hue of orange against the black and white or the purple, you know, it just stands out. It's very nice detail.
Now, in terms of the nerdy stuff that I enjoy, you are looking at 60 frames per second. There are a few moments where it's streaming in and you'll see a slight drop there. I'm sure this is something that they could patch out, but generally it's 60 FPS across the board with reasonably good response rates in terms of input latency.
In terms of the audio, it does suit the style of the game, and what I really like, something in particular, the first time I experienced it, it made me chuckle actually, is that when you get to that lift or the elevator at the end of the stage and it's loading into the next stage, it has the elevator music playing. I just thought that was a nice little touch, you know, a nice way to deal with a loading screen.
Now, one area that we were always asked about, and we couldn't have it in a list of everything you need to know and not show it, is the handheld footage. Now, as you can see, in handheld it performs exactly the same as it does in docked. Very responsive. Text size doesn't seem to be a huge issue, although there are a couple that are a little smaller than others. Overall though, it is a really nice one to play in handheld.
So in terms of price then, it sells for £21.99 here in the UK, and regional equivalents will be at the bottom of your screen as we are speaking. For that price, you get a game that, I guess on average, it's always difficult to gauge roguelites, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm thinking this is massive. In terms of the features and the extra things that Glen's showed me in the last couple of hours, I think for a completionist, you're looking at a big game.
I would say so. There are also things we haven't even mentioned yet, such as hidden areas that you can find. There are perks that you can unlock that detect where they may be in a level. So if you're looking to do all of that, unlock all of the weapons, try the contracts, challenges out, etc. Yeah, you're looking at 40-50 hours worth for sure.
Amazing. Yeah, if you have any questions about the game, then please do put them in the comments and we'll do our very best within the first couple of hours of launch of this video to answer those. Thanks so much to the publisher again for sponsoring this one. And as we always say, if you want to save yourself a little bit of money and support the channel, you can use code SwitchUp through March over at switchup.gg to save yourself a bit of money.
Absolutely. Just a quick thank you to our patrons and our channel members, of course, for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.